Welcome and thank you for joining us for the second of three sessions of Building Relationship Capital, the first CISO Sellers Mashup series at Audience First. Today, we're going to be talking about how do I retain a relationship with a CISO? How does this conversation work? We're all unmuting our mics today on this call so that we can get honest feedback and value from each other. Two cybersecurity sales professionals are on the call and two CISOs are on the call. We're going to have an opportunity to ask one question each so that we can learn how to retain business and turn each other into loyal advocates. If you would like for me to send this to you via email, please visit audiencefirst.fm where you see live events. You could register to get all three sessions recorded on demand. I do want to say thank you to our brave panel who has returned and has set time aside yet again to tackle another burning issue in our industry, in the cybersecurity industry. Before we dive in, why don't you quickly introduce yourselves once more for those who haven't joined us last week?
Yep, my name's Carlos Guerrero, and I'm with 360 Advanced out of Tampa, Florida. Excited to be here, and been in cybersecurity and compliance only for 2 or 3 years. Before that, I was in technology sales at an MSP. Always in a relationship-focused sales position, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
My name is Erika Eakins. I'm a enterprise rep at Aqua Security, cloud native application protection platform. That's what we do. Look us up. I've been in tech sales for over around 12 years, and most of it has been cyber because I gravitated towards cyber. I was on the reseller side and then moved to the dark side, the vendor side. Excited to be here. I'm pumped about this episode.
I'm the CISO and the CSO at Avid Technology. Been in the InfoSec industry for at least 15 years, in IT over 25, quarter of a century.
Wow. Everybody give Dima a round of applause. He's not feeling very well today. Thank you for joining us, even though you're a little under the weather.
Chris was like, "Oh, that voice sounds sexy." Like, no, just sick.
Hey. It was sexy and quiet.
He wasn't the only one.
A little rumbly voice. I'm like, it's going to be one of those days. He's already tuned into somebody in the industry. Chris Roberts, CISO over at Bloom Supersonic, Chief Geek over at Hillbilly Hit Squad. Yeah, that's about it. Too much on the internet about me.
Awesome. And I'm Dani Woolf, your moderator, making sure everything is technically functioning today. And I'm also the CEO at Audience First. Why have we continued this session? Well, it's one thing to talk about how to hook that first meeting with a CISO, but it's another to maintain and retain that relationship and that business. I've seen this big problem firsthand. We work hard as vendors to acquire net new customers at all costs, literally at all costs. We spend exorbitant amounts of money to get them, but when they sign on, they're ghosted. Or so I've heard in the Audience First podcast. And so today we're going to have a brutally honest conversation about how to keep and maintain the relationship. Both parties are going to talk to one another and see how to do good and not screw it up. So I'm going to open up the discussion with one question for each party. For the sellers in the house, what do you find to be the most challenging when retaining relationships and business with security buyers? Carlos, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, thanks, Dani. I appreciate that. I've been thinking about that question since you sent it over. And what came to mind was I wanted to just kind of make a statement that none of this is a individual sport. It's a team sport. And so probably one of the most difficult things as a salesperson, there can be, is that, at the end of the day, a lot of this gets handed over to some sort of team. Like, we work for companies that provide services. And, my advice to sellers out there would be to align yourself with an organization that is doing right by folks. But even then, there can be situations like private equity or company goes public. And there's a lot of times when, service breaks down. And so there's only, so much that we can do. And when that goes sideways, that's probably the most difficult aspect, especially when you put your name and reputation on the line during the whole process of building that relationship. That would be my response and my feedback.
So my biggest challenge is, obviously I sell one solution or product, right? my biggest challenge is landing, and then expanding in the organization. Even though I don't sell to like the data center team or, the servers, like the network guys, I need to work with them because my product could touch that team. It could affect it. They all have to work together internally. And a lot of the times they're very siloed. So it's hard as a seller for me to build relationships with the guys and ladies outside of the cybersecurity teams that I'm working with. And I would also add that it's really challenging to get to like the CEO, the CFO, because my target is a CISO, but I need to know the other executives as well. My advice for that for sellers is do your research and talk to everybody you can. Don't be siloed and only go for the team that you're trying to sell to. Go talk to the janitor because you need to know everybody.
Yep.
All right, for the CISOs in the house, why is ghosting such a big issue and a challenge for you as a security buyer?
Can I squirrel for a moment? Because, we're only 5 minutes into this and I'm going to squirrel.
Yeah.
All right.
Obviously.
Tell me why you need to know the CEO and you need to know the other executives.
Let me rephrase that. I would like to know them because that helps me understand the business as a whole. And I can look and do research about your company, but I want to know what the CEO's goals are. I want to know what the CFO's goals are and how I can align my product and my services to be, a true partnership. We talked about this last week. I can't just be siloed and talk to one team because, for one, I can't expand my business there. For two,
So it's got nothing to do with actually building a relationship. It's getting your hooks into me so that you can sell me more stuff.
wrong. I mean, it's two parts. So yes, of course I want to sell more to you, but I also want to build relationships because I know I'm going to stay in this industry forever and I want to come to you in 10 years and, ask you advice or, just build that relationship like a true human being versus treating you with like a CISO or a CEO title. Does that answer your question?
It does, but it also means I'm nothing more than a stepping stone. And that's
Well,
how it feels.
yes, it does feel like that, and I'll tell you why. Because I told you last week that the sales process is broken. As salespeople, we're required to do some of these things that really piss you guys off. Because I can't go to my VP or like my CRO and say, yeah, I've never met the VP of purchasing or like the CFO. It's part of the processes that I think are broken because it doesn't help the customer. It helps line our pockets, which is why we're all in this, is to make money and because we love it. But I'm responsible for growing my company's bottom line. So there are things that I'm required to do as well. And I was really excited about your question that you're going to ask us later because I want to talk about that and how it's so one-sided sometimes. But I'll wait till the end.
Can I equate it to something maybe? So you guys, meaning the sales and go-to-market teams, are hired for a particular purpose, right? You got to get the sales out, right? Revenue generation. And very similar to how we search for our keys under a light, we start doing that revenue generation in the easiest place and direction possible that everyone expects you to do is customers. Obviously, that's where the money is.
Yep.
Chris's point is that Chris, sorry, I'm trying to wrap it, but if you're trying to understand what my CEO wants to do and what my CFO wants to do, that is commendable and that's good because at the end of the day, my job is helping them do what they need to do. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that is still the easier thing to do than looking at your own GTM strategy, looking at your own product, looking at your own sales collateral, looking at your own sales education and saying, wait a second, this is too aggressive. This is too cold. This doesn't account for Chris being a regular person that has a dog in an outside kitchen, right? Like it doesn't account for anything else except for go out and get us the numbers. And so I just, there was a cybersecurity company I worked with over the last month or so, advising them on their GTM strategy. And I'm finding their sales personnel knowing that the things they have and the things they use aren't good. They know it. and yet they keep going out and working through the pay, cutting out chunks of the presentations or the decks knowingly. Why do that? And the reason why is because that's the easiest, right? When you're faced with two bad decisions, you're going to pick one that has the least amount of work.
Correct.
You're not going
So,
to pick the one that's going to solve the problem later on.
right.
I think that's the main gap at this point. The reason why we feel like we're ghosted is because we are. And we're ghosted because the majority, not all, but majority of the GTM approaches are one-sided. They go from zero forward. They don't go from zero back ever. And I think that's a big gap.
Yeah. So, personally, I can tell you the way I handle that. So I won't work for a company if every product or service might have an issue. We know that it's technical, right? It's going to be messy. I try to find companies that I see a product market fit or whatever the terminology is that actually does work, and that, if there's challenges, how they overcome it. Are they working towards it? Like, I work for Aqua's a startup. We're still in that phase where if a customer finds something and we could fix it or, create it for them, we're able to do that. I personally stay away from large companies that are, like really established public, because you can no longer give that personal touch. And there's nothing wrong with those companies. But you're right. People do take stuff out of their decks because nobody's going to tell you the bad. However, if you have a good salesperson, they will stop, like, through the process. If we find out that the product is not a fit, or it's going to have buyer's remorse, I personally will tell the customer, I'm not going to sell this to you because it won't work. But a lot of salespeople won't do that because they're scared to lose their jobs. And to me, my reputation is more important than selling you something that you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and then 10 years later, you're going to remember that I did that.
I think the challenge is you're in the minority.
Yeah. That's why I said I can't speak for all.
And that's what we'll talk about it later, but I think you're in the minority. So what ends up happening is we do this dance through the sales process. We get something in, and then exactly to your point, the next conversation is, so let's meet the CEO. And I'm like, y'all do realize that the CEO is actually running the business and isn't there to kiss babies and shake hands?
Yeah, but I don't even ask to meet those people. Like, that's after I've already sold to you and built some sort of relationship. I'm talking about, it could take years. I don't even ask to meet the CISO right away. And I get talked to about that because I can't get to him most of the time right away.
In the minority. Part of the reason.
But that's why she's here, because she
is
the minority that cares. And that's why we're having this conversation. I love it. By the way, I love people
I disagree. Well, like, there's some comments about companies use MedPick and other things. Those don't always work. They're good methodologies, but they're not going to work for everybody. And one of the reasons I am here is because like I said, the process is broken and we don't treat you like a human. You're just a CISO and my stepping stone to get to X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, no matter what. And companies have to take responsibility for that they have to sell, they have to provide value and not screw their customers over, because retention is the number one thing that investors want to see, because they want to see that constant income, because you can't grow if you don't have a good customer base. Sorry, I kind of took over.
No, I think the other part of it is as well is, and this is the CISO hat side of it, is there are too many CISOs who buy product to put a tick in the box. I'll buy your product simply to satisfy the fact that I now have compliance. And so once I've done it, my job's done, I'm done with you. So we see that too often as well. And I've seen it from our side way, way too often. It's like, well, why are you buying that? Well, because it satisfies the compliance or the regulatory requirement. And this is why we've ended up with 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 plus tools, when actually we needed maybe a third of that or a quarter of those tools.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the industry's fault, because we were product focused sales reps forever, and now everybody's trying to be like, consultative. So we did that. I can't even.
So many approaches. Hi, I'd love to understand your business and your industry, and I really want to. No, you don't. No, you don't. I know what you're selling me, and so it comes across as crazily insincere, because you're right. Everybody was like, "Here's your box, buy this." Now everybody's like, well, I really want to understand this with you, because I still want to sell you the box, but I'd love to listen to you for 10 minutes while we explain how we can help this box. And no, it's, No, you're so right.
Yeah, it irks me. And, people tell me I shouldn't be in sales, but I actually care about my customers. I am in the minority, but it's uncomfortable when I'm told to do something and get all these CISOs to an event or a dinner. And I'm like, are you crazy? They have families. They don't talk CISO talk all day.
I love how Dani and is it Jive? I'm
Yeah.
throwing fuel on the fire.
I'm poking the bear a little bit.
I know.
Yeah, but
Chris,
that's right. I mean, that's the problem. I would argue there are just as many CISOs as there are sales and marketing professionals who are doing it wrong, who don't care, who are simply there to take the paycheck and just to do the job, as opposed to make a difference.
Well, and I also see a lot of the times that such and such has a relationship with somebody's brother, sister, or cousin, and I'm going to buy it because I go golfing with their dad. Like, relationships are important, but you're buying it just based off of because of internal politics. So that's what we struggle with on our side is like you're buying a product because you've had a relationship with somebody for 10 years, which is great. But like you kick out really other good products just because somebody knows somebody.
I'm telling you, we need to have reviews on LinkedIn, both for CISOs and salespeople, and kind of track it. Oh, Chris, look at Chris. He's like, oh my God, I want this. Right? We have the reviews, and we could have, and I think this even comes down to some form of certification. So medic or med pick, whatever you want to call it, that is an approach, right? Dani, whether it's the LL or LLDD or whatever else we come up with, right? There's got to be that we can certify people against their will and say, based on the reviews the people left for you, you are not going to get certified this year, recertified. So you're going to be like one of those, like a B, what are they called? The B celebrities, the B list. You are B list, so you just buy things with a checkbox. So really A-list salespeople will not be talking to you, and A-list CISOs will also not be talking to you. Sorry.
That's good. I think you're onto something with that. Honestly,
we're uncovering a lot of great ideas here and going down quite the rabbit hole. I do want to get back to the talking points, but before doing that, Carlos, did you have something to add there?
Well, I was just going to mention that just listening in, like, I think that as business people, as salespeople, like we can still hit goals and hit metrics and have growth, but still provide value. I don't think those or still help solve problems, put it that way. I think that those things are not mutually exclusive. I mean, I think that that's why I think it really comes down to who are you repping? Like, how does your organization go to business? Not just you as a salesperson. If those things are tied together, then hopefully, good partnerships can come out of those things, and we can really do a lot of great things together. I've seen it. I've been a part of it. I just think that I think it's important to take that into consideration.
Yeah,
agreed. 100%. I agree with you. That's a great point.
All right, I do want to touch on some ghost stories before we kick it to Carlos to ask his awesome question. Any good ghost stories that you could share with us, Chris and Dmitriy, that will provide some entertainment for us? Ghosting and why it's a challenge. I know, Dmitriy, you touched on it a little bit about 7 minutes ago before we went down the rabbit hole, but would love to see some color here.
So that one actually wasn't a ghost story. That was not a vendor of mine. It was just something. I actually give them credit. They said, "Can you take a look at what we're doing and give us your opinion?" And it wasn't a sales pitch. I already have a product in their space, so definitely wasn't a sales pitch. So I would say that's actually opposite of ghosting. But I have some vendors that are, what's the word? Up in my face. They're becoming almost annoying in their attempts to get me to get the most out of their product. I cannot praise them more than, and that's amazing, even though I find it annoying when I haven't eaten, right? Like when I'm hangry, okay, you're going to get it, whether you're a cat or a vendor that's trying to get me to whatever, right? But there are some that sell like, $200,000, $400,000 yearly kind of spend. Now, for them, that might not even be big. That might be average. And as a result, I might get a message 3 months in, hey, how's it going? Just checking in, see everything's going well. 3 months in? Really? You think your product is that easy? That for 3 months you haven't heard from me and everything is going really well? I'm not going to name names, but sometimes the more you spend, the worse it gets.
They know who they are.
Oh yeah, well they do. I mean, I really want to name names, but I'm in the same boat. I'm so flipping tempted.
I have lost my voice in one of those conversations. Yes. And someone on my team afterwards, like, we didn't know. I actually got, so Chris, this is between us, like, I got in trouble, let's quote in quotations, with my team. But yeah, because they didn't know I could yell, or they didn't know I could get angry. And I had to explain that sometimes you have to let it out, because, holding emotions back is really bad, first of all. But second of all, I think that's the one way I can express my disappointment. Right? Just words oftentimes is enough. Not yelling. I wasn't like screaming at them, but I sounded terse, like with my 4-year-old. Like, look,
I
What
turned
do
up
the names
here.
rhyme with?
They
What
just
do the
got
names
quiet.
rhyme with?
Yeah.
not gonna do it.
I actually just got hit up with one. I told them I didn't want that. But yeah, anyways, the ghosting thing. I got a good one for you. So I turn up here and start asking all the good and awkward questions that a CISO should ask. And suddenly realized that our endpoint provider hasn't talked to us or invoiced us in a year and a half. They've been running like one portion of maybe a 10-portion pie of endpoint. It got put in because it was to tick a box, and then nobody touched it. I mean, the thing every now and again alerts and says, hey, look at me. And the folks here are very, very good at doing it. We hadn't heard hide nor ghost nor hair from the vendor for a year and a half. I start asking all the awkward questions like, as you can imagine, I can probably ask some really awkward questions, aside from the fact of why you've been AWOL for a year and a half. I get a message last week, I kid you not, from the sales rep's manager. Hi, we realized that we've been absent for a year and a half. No fault of yours or ours, but we'd like to true up now.
Oh, so they have money.
Yeah. So needless to say, that particular endpoint vendor is going to be so rapidly kicked to the curb. It's not even funny. I mean, I'm debating in Jolly about how much.
Are we not allowed to name names, or is it just our choice not to name names?
It is a base element, and it's a dark color. I'll let you figure.
We have an end. I'm sure. Great.
Yeah, I already know.
Yeah, exactly.
We have. What does it sound like? We have an NDA. I was trying to get a quote from an endpoint vendor to renew, and they wouldn't respond. Wouldn't respond. We finally were like, okay, well, we're not renewing. There's no response. So we went with someone better in many ways. Luckily that they didn't respond. I'm just like, that really threw me off. Now, in their case, they went through 2 or 3 acquisitions over the course of like 6 months and made some business decisions and this and that. So I kind of get how it happened. It's just, to me, in today's world of technology, maybe that's just too much technology. Maybe people just get overwhelmed with it.
Well, that's unacceptable. And I actually, Christopher Francis, he has a good comment, and I want to actually say something about that. If you feel the salesperson is responsible for your satisfaction with the product, are you treating them like a vendor or a partner? First part of that is when you close a deal, you are on every call that you can possibly be on during implementation, post implementation. You get on with your customer experience teams. So yes, you are supposed to be there to help them stay satisfied and want to renew your product every year. Now, if there's challenges with it, you find somebody that can help them. That's not something you can do personally, but if you help them get to where they can be satisfied, that's your part of your job. Post sales is one of the most important things versus net new business. And this is what the CISOs are talking about is you sell something and then a year later you come back and ask for the renewal and it's 20% more than it was last year.
Yeah.
That's
This
crap.
is a great this is a great segue because I think it touches on what Carlos wants to ask.
It
So I'm gonna
does.
kick it to Carlos. We're gonna get into the questions because we're already halfway through. And I want to make sure
Yeah.
everyone has their fair share of airtime here. So Carlos, why don't you go ahead and open up with what you want to ask our CISOs here on the call?
Yeah, I certainly will. And, kind of the question kind of reflects on my first statement is that this is a team sport, right? I mean, I get what you're saying, Erica, about being on every call, but that's not how all teams are built. And if
Right.
and truthfully, if I'm out looking for net new for like new clients to bring into the fold and I have to stay involved with every single client, then that's not the way our system works. And so I have to know that the team backing me up are meeting with people and are updating me, of course. But I mean, really, if the team can't support this, then that's really where problems happen. And Dmitriy mentioned one himself with acquisitions and those sort of things. So it's really important. And so the question that I was going to put towards everyone, let's say you go through the sales process and you've met the salesperson and their team, and you're about to embark on a rather large purchase for your organization. How do you make sure that the firm or the company that that has been represented, that they are going to follow through and do what you said, what they said would be done and what you agreed upon? Do you go through some early due diligence? I mean, how do you really know?
You want to hit this one, Dmitriy, or you want me to start off?
I actually see that someone in comments also kind of mentioned Bruno talked about, if when you are looking for a vendor, there is the vendor due diligence, right? That occurs. We're talking about, or rather, the first thought is that it covers security concerns. Is this vendor secure, right? Is the product made secure? Like all those standard things. But that's only part of the vendor due diligence. I would also say that we always talk about getting more knowledge from other teams, CFOs, CEOs. Get to learn your procurement person. Get to know your procurement person. Get to understand what's important to them. We have an amazing procurement person, Melissa, and I actually just what's the day? Monday. On Thursday, I had to go back to her, maybe Friday, and apologize. She told us something. She said, if you're doing a POC or POV with a vendor, please include us. And I'm like, you're slowing me down, it's crap, we got to go fast. And her point was, look, when you like them, and you like everything, when you like them, and it's time to renew that POC or POV, you didn't put any kind of language on the renewal or limitations of cost raises on any of things like that, right? So, okay, well, crap, we just ran into that situation, right? The vendor is now, we're going for POC, POV2, we want to actually keep them, and we can't, or rather, for now at least. Now I have to go back to Melissa. Melissa, can you help us out, trying to figure this out and negotiate this down or whatever? But that's just one of the things that she or they can help us with. One of the bigger ones is this really a good vendor for us in financial terms, in economic terms, in stability terms? If this vendor just came around and we're planning to use them for 5 years, how stable are they? What's their cash flow? Can they survive more than a year and a half? Do they have a necessary support team? What kind of cadence do they? What kind of CSM process do they have? And you want to ask those questions before you buy, because someone said it's our own fault. It is laziness per se, but it's also lack of education. CISOs, we like the shiny toys. We don't really want to change oil, right? And oil needs to be changed every year, whatever, the car depends. But this is part of the thing. We're like, oh, it's a shiny toy. Oh, crap, I got to go do all this maintenance, all this renewal, the other crap. And we don't think about it early on, but we should. So part of due diligence, probably bigger part of the due diligence, should be this. Is this a stable vendor? Is this vendor too big for us? Will they ghost us because we're just a small hiccup and not even a road bump for them? So maybe instead of going for the massive, awesome vendor, we go for a smaller one, but we know that will be the one where I will know the person I'm working with. I will know that person for the next 5 years because they're what's their rotation? When people come and go in companies,
Turnover.
very turnover. Thank you. Turnover is very low. So I will be sure to talk to this person 5 years from now when I'm going to be whatever may be the case. So due diligence is super important, and it's on us to do. And Carlos, these are important things. But I mean, it would be helpful if it also came during the sales process proactively. Hey, we know that CSO is important. We want to be there. We're interested in your project. What is your progress criteria?
Right.
Can we meet in a year and reassess, make sure, or in 6 months, or even 3 months, 6 months, a year, to make sure we're meeting your progress targets? I think that would be important.
So real quick, Chris, before you move on. So I think that's important. I think when you're having business level discussions about alignment, then you end up choosing not a vendor, but a partner. Because so many times, again, Chris, to your point, if people are checking off a box just to get an endpoint protection solution, who gives a shit if they're going to be a good partner or not? I got my tool, I can move on. But I think if you really work to align the business goals with the company you're going to be working with, and you go through that trouble to get to that point before purchase, you're much more likely to have a partner rather than a vendor, I think.
So,
And it goes on, we get to help make that decision too, right? If it's not a good fit, we should be able to say, to Erika's point, it's not a good fit.
I'm going to answer you probably more directly and bluntly. First and foremost, you don't get to the negotiation step without due diligence happening, because it's a waste of everybody's time.
Sure.
So you don't get to the first meeting, possibly you don't get to the second meeting without due diligence already occurred, because again, it's a waste of everybody's time. For me, it's simple. I'm going straight to your website. I want to look at your company. I want to look at what you are morally and ethically. I'm also going to go look at your leadership. If it's a whole bunch of old white guys, we ain't doing business. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
We will not do business. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I'm going to go take a look at the organization itself and see where you put money, where you're taking your money from. If you're taking money from a VC or an angel, either I've crossed paths with or I have no desire to deal with, we're not doing business. Then I'm going to go and take a look at your people. I'm going to go take a look on the social media sites, the Glassdoor sites, and everybody else. Let's see if the people like you, and if they like working for you, let's see who they are. Then after that, I'm going to go talk to the Tinkerers, which is a group that a number of us founded, and there's several hundred of us in there. And we're going to go talk to peers and go, what do we think? After that, you get the next meeting or you don't. And if you don't, I'll tell you why you don't. And that really is what it comes down to. Now, to Dmitriy's point, after we've gone through those, then there's the conversations of how does the organization align financially, morally, ethically, all that stuff. But most of that stuff comes after that baseline.
That's awesome.
I'd say like a lot of things you probably do more than most, right? I mean, that's an extra level of due diligence. And I would rather you tell me I'm not going to do business with you because XYZ, whatever the reason is, and then let's all move on. I think on what's really interesting on the topic of ghosting is that it happens in the opposite direction, right? I've had, conversations with folks that, man, we had a great meeting, and then there's like nowhere, right? There's no email going, hey, you know what? We're just not a good fit right now. And then I say, thank you very much, and let's move on. I think this is all about opening up these channels of communication. And I salute you for doing all that due diligence.
I think also people don't like conflict, even in the
They don't.
world. Of picking up the phone to you and saying no, they don't like it. I personally don't care at that point in time. No, now, maybe some point down the future, go find somebody else other than your standard board of directors.
Well, and there's sometimes customers where you get through proof of value and you have the technical win, and then you're going to go into negotiations and all the other steps, and they ghost you, and you're like, I don't even know what happened. That doesn't happen a lot, but it happens more times than not. I mean, it happens like a lot in certain, products, but that's really frustrating where you spend all this time. At least like tell me that, hey, I like the win. You won it technically, but this is why. And I think you're right. They don't like conflict. People are they don't want to have people that have like a negative thought about them.
Yeah.
It's that plus a little bit more. We are afraid you're going to try and convince us. And now that's a conflict. It's not simply saying, okay, I understand. It's
That's a good point.
But look,
That's true.
we have brighter colors. Are you sure?
Because that's what we do every time. Well,
Yeah.
let me show you this, and then let's get management involved. And you're right.
I keep saying, in their majority, techies, CISOs are not good at
personal conflict. That's why we are in tech, because we didn't want to have personal conflicts.
You don't want to deal with humans.
Yeah, we don't want to deal with humans. And look, I got a black cat. Like, that's what we want to deal with. We don't want to deal with humans. And now I have to. Not only that, but I'm in a position where I'm going to explain myself. And I know Chris will just simply tell him to F off. I can't. I have something. That's why I just, oh no, I don't want to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
in those debrief calls, that's when I invite management so they hear it directly from the customer. And I don't always get them on the call, so I'm not perfect, but it's not me telling my management like they said this. We have to invite them to those calls because they're going to try to retain you or forward the process. But tell my manager, tell my VP. I would love that instead of just saying, goodbye, not calling ever again. But I get that. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna kick it to Erika for the sake of the time here. We touched on this a little bit in our last conversation, and we touched on it a little bit here. But Erika, why don't you propose your question to the panel?
So we've established a relationship, right? You've bought like my product or service. That's where we're at in the process. And at the end of the day, you guys know I want to build a relationship with you. We've already talked about that a little bit, and I know you're going to ask me why, Chris, in a second. But hold on. So at the end of the day, I want to build a relationship, you've brought my product and service. Now what? What is next? What is your best advice to achieve that exact thing? Is for me to build a relationship with you or a partnership. And then I want to add to that, what would it look like? How do I not fuck it up?
Don't be a tool.
I like that comment.
Someone said that already, didn't they?
So it's kind of like 3 questions in one. Like, give me some advice.
But there's an easy
Build
answer.
it for me.
But there's an easy answer: honesty and integrity. I know when you're using me as a stepping stone. Not all the time, but for the most part, I know when I'm being used as a stepping stone. I know when I'm being sold to, rather than somebody coming up and saying, hey, let's just go grab a cup of tea. It's Friday afternoon. It looks like it's been a shit week. Get the hell out of there for half an hour. Versus, hey, let's go have dinner with A, B, C, and D. There's a huge difference. And it's the same thing with, I'm fortunate. Again, we just sat down and started working with, and I'll name it, we're working with Newspire. And we're working with them on basically MSSP, endpoint, a bunch of other things. And the deal was won because of the individual that was doing the selling, but not really doing the selling. I think that's the difference. It wasn't a sale, it was a partnership. And now, to your point, they're on the calls. They're helping to coordinate. They're helping to manage the process. They're also just checking in. I get text messages going, hey, I saw your LinkedIn. Looks like there's a bit of a shit show going on. Anything else I can do to help? That's a very personal thing. And I know it takes time, and I know it takes effort, and I know it takes all this coordination and stuff. But that then turns it from I know they're selling to I know there's an actual level of care there. And that's a big difference to me, and I think it's that honesty and integrity. Yes, we all know that you need to protect the investment. In other words, if I suddenly say, screw it, I'm going to go off and raise koalas in Tasmania, you need to ensure longevity inside and past my longevity. There's also, to your point, there's also the how can you potentially leverage more business? Well, there's ways of doing it. And some of that's just purely transparent. Some of that literally is like, hey, if you get run over by a red bus, who the fuck am I going to talk to? Oh, I know. You need to talk.
Yeah.
Let's just set up a meeting so at least you know them. That's way more transparent than doing it in a more subdued, basically, non-transparent way. So that's how I look at it.
Okay.
I would also add care. And so if you care, just show it. Hey, how are you guys doing? I know we talked about you achieving this thing.
Caesar's on a
36
roll.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dmitriy.
Yeah, be a fucking human. Recite, be a human. I'm going to cut this up. Be a human. Now that's, so let me expand on this a little bit. If you don't care, don't fake it. There is a way to follow the I need to care without faking it, to Chris's point. It might, and I honestly, if you come out and say, look, I just don't have it in me to care about your EDR project. Like I care about dogs and manatees. I don't care about EDR, but that's my job. I'm selling it, right? So can we at least agree on what that looks like for me to care? Like, what is it that I need to follow up on and make sure that it occurs? There's plenty of salespeople that, remember I talked about in the previous meeting that when they check out, I said they check out half an hour, or whatever, half an hour, 5 minutes into a conversation, you see in their eyes, they checked out, but they don't skip a single check-in. They know what to ask when. So look, I don't care. I do this for a job, but I'm really interested in making you successful because that will help me. Okay, now we're totally honest. I know you don't love my dog. I know you don't care for black cats. That's fine. You don't like the food I eat. I don't care. That's fine. But we're on the same page that this project needs to get to this point, and both you and I are interested in getting it there. So let's just agree on the rules of engagement. We don't have to show each other, pink lilies and we don't have to go grab coffees together. That's fine. But if you check in on a cadence that we agreed on in the beginning and you do care for that to complete because you have your ulterior motives, that's fine. I think that's enough. So either care and show it, or don't care, but replace it with something that both sides can agree on, and just don't be fake.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, that's huge. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, we're going to kick it to the CISOs now, who have some pretty juicy questions for the sellers in the house. Dmitriy, it's all you.
I'm going to try and ask it. So any product, that's my black cat taking care of my table. So
He doesn't like
any
the
product,
question.
I know, any product has 100% of features and functionality within the context of the licensing that we purchased, whatever it may be. Now, getting 100% is impossible. We know that. That's you've got to have a very specifically configured demo system, right, to get every little feature turned on and working correctly. So we know that that's not really possible. But there is a vast difference between the 5 to 25% used with just a simple drop, install, and walk away. An average using we sort of using some of the features fairly okay, blah, blah, blah. That's about, getting up to 50%. And those really, really annoying customers that really want to get the most out of your product, getting up to like 75, 80%. That's like peak. Now that's a progression over time, over project, etc. You as salespeople, do you consider this when you talk about the future relationship conversation? And if so, what is the target that you usually aim for? And if not, why not?
Erika, that's probably more position for you because you sell software. I mean, I get the concept.
It covers the services as well. So
No, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll kind of, but Erika, you go first, and then I'll kind of
So-
share my thoughts.
Okay. So good salespeople know that their products are going to be difficult, especially in large accounts, even small accounts. I've seen it. You do account for that in the future. Whether or not you tell the customer that, I can't speak for, salespeople, but most salespeople are only looking at the end game, which is end of quarter. I need to close this deal. I need to hit my quota because they're getting pressure from above. And I'm not talking bad about companies, but if you're a good salesperson, you're going to walk the customer through every step, and you understand that your customer knows that it's going to be difficult. That's not the average salesperson, though. I would say that they think about it, but they're not good at planning. And a lot of that has to do with the stress that they deal with day to day about worrying about losing their job and not hitting quota, especially in times like right now. And then there was one last part that you asked me. What was the last part of it? Or did I answer it?
I think you answered the part of the why not.
Okay.
But is there a particular percentage that if you do this, what is the golden place that you aim for?
Well, we're going to aim for 100%, but I would say maybe like 80-20. Did I enter it?
Yeah.
So
Because honestly, it's in certain customer environments, you're gonna find all these problems that you may not have been aware of. But like if you plan for stuff and prepare the customer, you have a higher percentage of things working out well.
So is that something you work on, or is that something you hand off to the CSM team and say, okay, we talk to the customer, they're okay being 20, 30%. They just need to close an immediate gap. And later on, we might come back to it and help them expand. But for now, that's the target. Or
Okay, yeah.
just-
Yeah, the CX team, that's part of the post-sale, but you should still be involved in that because of escalation and just basically supporting your customer, because sometimes things move slow, as you know. But yeah, that would be like a more of a post-sale customer experience tech or support team, but we should be there coordinating.
All functions, I'll chime in there. All functions should have a role in that experience for the customer, including marketing, including product, including sales, including customer success, and founders and C-levels.
Yes.
It's an experience. We talk about, later in audience first, we'll talk about the whole loop. It's not a funnel, hand it off to the next step and the next people. It's a full life cycle for the customer. So all roles have some function for that KPI or that percentage.
Yep.
Putting that out there.
You mean
And-
that
and
not
it's-
meant
that's-
being
I'm
passed
sorry?
along? You mean that
No.
sausage being passed along from one thing to another?
Unfortunately, that's the case in lots of organizations, and it's a mindset shift. It's a
Too
huge.
many.
It has to be a mindset shift and a culture shift within the organization.
Well, and that's like what I said earlier. Like I'm involved every step of the way because of stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, it's still my reputation on the line. Now, Carlos works for a different organization. The vendor reps, we should be involved, even though if you're working with a reseller or if you buy direct from me, we should stay involved. And our company, each function should stay involved, like Danny said.
totally.
Does that make sense?
I get it. Yep, 100%. And in my world, I think it depends. Like for us, like, professional services, one of the things that the potential client or the prospect may not understand fully is how much work it's going to take on their end in order for the project to be successful. And I think that's something that we have to have real honest and, conversations with on that topic, so that they know that if they can't show up, then this thing can't be successful. That's typically where, if I were to say, oh, it's going to be fine, and then we sign a deal and then it's not fine because they don't have the resources for it to be successful, that can be a problem. And that's why I'll back it up again. If in professional services, if the folks that are actually doing the work are involved in helping to scope projects, and then they can at least convey that message too, right? And so that's when we find them to be successful, is we're able to have those conversations. Does that kind of line up, Dmitriy, in sort of a apples to apples?
Yeah, it does. And I was going to say, having spent 10 years on the PS side,
Yeah.
your GTM is not using feedback or direct involvement from the field teams that actually work with customers. You're missing a crack.
Yes.
I can't give a proposal without having what in our world, a practice director involved. And so, and they have enough work on their plate that they'll say, they want to win business, but not in the same way we do. So it creates a little bit of a stopgap and helps to convey.
Well, and to add to that, I know we have to get to Chris's question. Like sometimes we can't do a proof of value if we don't get certain information from the customer. So like we get stuck in the sale process because my VP is not going to approve it if I don't have all these things talked about and discussed in these plans. So it goes back to that planning and being involved. So we have things.
I think so. It behooves both parties. This is actually one of those where both parties need to come table with honesty and integrity, which I think is missing. And it's missing for a number of reasons. We'll go back to Endpoint, and I'll go straight back to NewSpire. We sat down talking with them, and we're like, hey, we need to rip out the current Muppets that didn't talk to us for 18 months and replace it with shit that works. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do that, and we can do it. We've done it before, but it ain't going to be painless. And we're like, and I know that there will be some people in the CISO position like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I need to hear that it can be implemented in an hour. Whereas those with a bit of honesty and integrity go, all right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what it's going to take, how long it's going to take. Let's talk about the headaches it's going to be. Let's talk about this. And let's talk about how we get through that. But that takes both parties. That takes risk from the sales and customer side to be honest and go, hey, shit ain't gonna be plain sailing. And most don't want to do that because they know the other 20 vendors standing on either side are promising wealth beyond avarice and it'll be installed in the first hour.
Yeah, and they don't want to derail the deal.
Exactly. Whereas on the CISO side, sometimes we just want the freaking tick in the box. We don't necessarily want to put the time and effort in. We want shit just to work. We don't have all the resources to do what we do. And so it's really, it does behoove both parties coming to the table and going, I got scars, you got scars. How do we try not to get too many more of these in the next month or two?
Yeah, that's a huge disconnect.
Great way to put it. Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
We got to certify people for this, I swear.
No, truthfully,
Like certified, like
we talked
crazy.
we talked about this the other week, and we've had these conversations. We do need, then there needs to be.
There's got to be some way to identify. Like, look, like Erika and Carlos. Like, let's say you guys had this badge, right? Earned in combat, not in that. Earned in the storms of cybersecurity selling, as confirmed by CISOs, right? And then it takes like, I don't know, you need like 10 CISO references, and vice versa for CISOs. You know, you get like 10 salespeople references. This is a CISO that can be dealt with honestly and truthfully, right? So if you know that's a person on the other side, you come and say, oh yeah, look, whatever the marketing people say, this is a real deal. You're going to get 60% of what they're saying. It's going to take us 6 more months to deploy. But tell you what, I'm going to be there the whole way. Our CSM team is going to be there with you the whole way. And we will work together on defining your board deliverables and KPIs and help you quantify and do all that, right? So now we're all walking in, and now you can be the CISO that just comes in and needs to check a bunch of boxes and get his bonus or her bonus and move on to the next job. You can be that CISO, but for those CISOs, there are salespeople that are also there for, you need a thing for the box. Here's a thing for the box. Okay, well, go out to the same restaurant. That's, you know, $5 sign, and for $5 sign. That's how
that's called plan strike. I'm pretty sure that's the modus operandi.
So that's, you know, like, you guys do that. Well, we need the people that do what we do, or what the people that help us do what we do, and vice versa. So certifiable, another cert. That's right, Bruno. Another cert.
Yeah, we need to like a safe space marketplace or something like. But something is needed.
Somebody mentioned that they're working on that program, cvciso.com.
Yeah, I got hit up with one. There's a few things out there. I think, again, here's my thing. I don't want a few things. I want people to work together and do one. I don't want 6 different freaking CISO safe spaces and market. I want one. Y'all get your shit together. Work together.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we're going to go a little bit over because this next question is freaking loaded. And that question alone would take us 3 sessions. So let's try and do it in 10 minutes, and then we'll leave another 10 minutes for extra questions. So we'll go over 10 minutes on the hour. But yes, Chris.
All right.
Bring it.
All right. Why? Why do you want to talk to me? We've done the sale. We've done the deal. Why do you want to talk to me? Now, we've already, Erika, you and I kind of went backwards and forwards a little bit on this one. We talked about some of the reasons we feel like you want to keep talking with us. And unfortunately, in many cases, there's too much insincerity. Yeah, insincere. Yes, whatever the hell it is. It's early in the morning. I'm not
fakeness.
Thank you.
Fakeness.
Too much, yeah. Too much fakeness. Thank you. Much more civilized way of putting it. There's too much fakeness. How do we change that? How do we change it? Because we sniff it out. Let's be perfectly honest.
Okay, Carlos, I'm going to go on this one because I've been waiting for this question. So there's two aspects on that. There's what my company wants me to do, and then there's morally and reputation-wise what I want to do. From a business aspect, if we are not talking to the person in power, which would be like the economic buyer, you're the decision maker, you're not the CFO, but you're going to tell the CFO it's okay to buy this. If we don't have that relationship, we can't manage and forecast, and that's all a part of business, and that's not your problem. But the other part of that is turnover rates. Your team has turnover. If we lose our contact, because I personally find a champion in every account, because I know I'm not going to get to the CISO right away. I find somebody that I make friends with and that I help him or her. I help him get promoted by, making things better, whatever the case is. There's a personal interest there. So that's more on the personal side. But I need you to be a part of my sale, because I have to report and forecast. And we all know that if I don't have these conversations with you, the deals could go sideways. I can't do mutual plans. I can't do planning down the road like QBRs. So you're supposed to do like quarterly business reviews with your customer to make sure things are going. If I don't have a direct line to you, none of that, even if your people are doing it, I still have to answer, well, was the CISO involved? What does the CISO involve? So that's the business side of it, because I don't want to ramble too much. The personal side is I need to have relationships. I'm a relationship seller, and I've had customers that I've done business with for over 10 years. I'm friends with their wives. I've been to dinner. So there is a personal aspect that I don't want to just do business with you. I want to, maybe someday when I want to become a CRO, I can go to you and say, hey, who's a good mentor? So it's a career and personal investment. And it's weird for some people ask me, well, how do you think his wife's going to feel about, having a relationship with a female rep? I invite their wives and families. If we go golfing, bring your families, get everybody involved, and make it about you. Because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here. This is what I want to do. So in 10 years, I want to, see you at a conference and be like, what's up, Chris? Or text you and be like, hey. So yes, I do want to add friends to my, my little circle, because it's just, as a relationship seller, that's how you do it.
All right. So my challenge is you can't do that with everybody. How do you pick and choose
No.
effectively? I mean, are you going to walk away from a sale because you don't like having because we're not going to be friends, or because I'm a creepy what's it, or because whatever? I mean, tell me.
No.
Yeah, that work.
I'm not going to walk away from a sale. I mean, if somebody's creepy, I am going to call them out, because my company would be upset about that. But not every CISO is going to want to even talk to me ever. So I make friends with their teams. I go to their management and I work with them, because essentially I have to work with the entire team. And if I can have that relationship with everybody and we're all on the same page, it's not always going to be smooth, but it's going to be easier for us to do business. And, on the vendor side, I see things that you might not be aware of yet that I could tell my customers and help you from your career's perspective. So no, I won't walk away. I just try to build with somebody else.
I think it's coming back to expectations right in the beginning. I'm a hugger, and I'm not, but like you can come out and say like, look, I'm a hugger. Okay. So we're going to I usually try to hug people when I see them. Is that okay? No, not really. Okay, good. Meaning not a hugger, right? Okay. So, what's it called? The little mini golf, hate
Mini
mini
golf.
golf. Okay. So no mini golf for him and his family. Like, that's terrible. Set expectations. I need to talk to you once a quarter to achieve the following things. I also would like to blah, blah, blah. Plus, for me to make sure you are successful, I need to hear from you somehow, in some way. What can we agree on? Are you okay with talking to me once a quarter? It's going to be tough, but we can try and put something in the calendar, although it's going to be fluid. Okay. Is there a way to do this over email? I can send you a quick 5 questions. You answer them quickly. We're done. Like that. That should be it. Is there someone else in your team that I can work with that likes mini golfing and stakes?
The answer to that is a mutual plan. Always create mutual plans that we both agree on, because we're not going to be friends with everybody.
But only one of us is going to be the one to start it, and it has to be you guys.
Yes.
Because, we got too much going on. There's too much going on.
But
because that's our job.
It's got to be the sincerity. Now, my other callback on this one is actually a really good point somebody said on here, which is, why the CISO? Why does your company have to know from the CISO? Why won't the director work? Why wouldn't the manager or the team work? Because again, you want the CFO. Well, if the CFO and I are not in alignment, we got bigger problems. I
Mhm.
mean, inside here, the CIO, the CISO, and the CFO pretty much are in alignment. So hearing from one of us should be perfectly acceptable.
The fastest way to lose it
Well, yeah.
is to get in touch with my CFO.
It
because
doesn't
you will
have
be
to
able
be the
explain
CISO.
to him. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the CISO. I can identify in the process that it's the CIO, but that's my job to find that out. So I'm just using CISO because this is a CISO panel, but most of the time it depends what what you're selling, but the chief information security officer, sometimes there isn't one. So who's your buyer then? The CIO?
So again, okay, so my challenge is, do you need to be this far up the food chain? I'm not with the far up the bloody food chain, but do you need to be this far up the food chain? Would the manager work or a director work?
Or a
And if
VP, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, because there's gonna be so many times that I'm not gonna reach that far. I work with large enterprise accounts, so we're talking about the beasts. I was never gonna meet Jeff Bezos if I was handling Amazon. There was no
Right.
way. It was hard to even get to that level of CISO or CIO. You can go to the directors, the VPs, but you identify that. So yes,
Yeah.
there are other people to answer your question.
Okay.
By the way, this is a side note. Dani, how much time do we have? 2 more minutes?
We'll go 9 more minutes. We'll go 9. We'll go 10 after.
What do CISOs do? Because it ain't checking alerts. It's not checking the status of a tool. It's not, and increasingly so, not technical things. And that's the right thing, because with exception of smaller companies or maybe some very, very specific cases, we are not because we want to. God knows I don't want to deal with business. I don't want to deal with people for the most part. I don't want to be writing presentations, PowerPoints, anything else. It's not because I want to, but that's what the need is in today's corporate environment. We need to be stepping up into the strategy, into strategic planning, long-term decisions, directions. None of that is tool specific. None. Zero.
Right.
I cannot bring a tool or a technical consideration, again, with minor exceptions of like, or do I go with Microsoft? Do I go with Amazon, right? Like those are maybe at this level. Anything else is going to stay at director, at senior director, at a manager level. And more importantly, they will be the ones that will actually do all this due diligence. They will do the planning and do that. And they'll bring it to me and say, look, I've assessed these 5, and this is the one that we should go with. Because at the end of the day, I'm still responsible for the budget, right?
Yes.
For the decision making. But I have very little information to give you about things you're asking, and I have things to do that have nothing, that are at a higher level. I don't mean that like you're too low. I just mean that we're talking at the level that sale doesn't occur. Sales don't happen at each meetings, right?
No, and you might have a director or VP that you kick us back to, and that's good too. It doesn't. The goal is a CISO always in mind, but if your VP and your directors or managers, you give them that responsibility, and we know that's who we work with. We don't try to push past it. Like I have a customer that I brought on recently, and I've never met their CISO because I deal with his direct report.
There are things we can tell you that are valuable to you. I think our level of maturity, that should be valuable to you. Our level of resource availability, that should be valuable to you. Our level of maturity in resource management, that should be valuable to you. Our level of maturity in 4 or 5 different things. Those are all things that are valuable to you because you can account for it in your prep with the person that's actually going to run the tool. Based on what I've heard from Dmitriy, from your CISO, your maturity in this area is average. Based on what we've been doing with our customers, we've seen ability to improve maturity in this area by following blah, 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 like that. Like, so now you've got a little bit of guidance, a little data input, and you bring it to the person that's actually going to do it. So,
and that's how you're flipping it from a product sale to a consultative partnership.
Exactly.
That's why you guys, another reason why you guys are so important, because of exactly what you just said. So and we need that to be a true partnership.
That's fair. That's fair.
The problem for you is that you're not going to be able to sell me a tool in my meeting.
No.
This will take 30 seconds. Sometimes, or a lot of times, historically, like someone from leadership will say to someone else, go find proposals for this. Or maybe they didn't say that and they just decided they wanted to go and like find some information because they think a solution needs to be And so sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes we have conversations with folks that kind of will tell us that they're the ones making the decision when really they've never
They're not.
updated anyone. So sometimes having validation from a stakeholder or someone that's actually going to be writing the check does make a difference in order for us to continue having, legit business conversations. I'm not saying that happens a lot or even all the
it
time
happens,
for sure,
yeah.
but it happens.
Oh, it happens a lot.
It happens. I was
Well,
going to say, tie kickers, I've dealt with it because, again, I've been sitting on that side of the fence for quite a while. Tie kicking is, or you're going up against an RFP where you already know you're going to lose. So why the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I've had people just want to learn something and they used us for it.
Yeah.
And then they find out later.
I try to disqualify if those feel
Yeah.
that way, right? But that does happen, and that's why we want to have conversations with a stakeholder as well.
Yeah.
Fair.
All right. Well, we have a few minutes left, and some of our panelists need to drop. I would love to go all night, but we cannot do that. So, we will sign off with one question from Cesar Pizarro. Curious for the panelists here. What do you feel about customer success supporting you post-sale? It's a model that bigger vendors use more and more. Is that valuable as a buyer, or do you feel ghosted?
Good question.
That's a great question.
I'm assuming the part here that's missing is the sales team steps away and completely hands off to the customer success team.
Yeah,
That's
I think that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I
In
think
which
that's
case-
what he's asking.
Right. I think it's totally fine. Again, we're back to expectations. Hey, look, I'd love to. And in fact, we can continue talking if you want to. I'm always here. You can always reach out to me. And if you don't mind, I can actually reach out to you once every quarter or every 6 months because I got to work on my pipeline planning. But Linda in customer success is amazing at tracking. And I'm going to meet with her and relay to her all the things we talked about. In fact, maybe we can even jump on the meeting together so we can do this handoff like a ship changeover together. And Linda from the CSN team is going to move on and will be your primary point of contact for any issue, something like that. I think that's not ghosting at all. If you simply just all of a sudden Linda appears and like, hey, Erika's no longer going to be working with you. Well, what happened?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so
Showing over by Red Bus.
I'm buttoned in because I got a couple of minutes before I have to drop, and this could go on for a long time. I'm going to keep it simple. I've spent the last X number of months working with the salesperson or the account exec, and they know me and I know them. If that handoff is not smooth and I end up with some muppet who tries to do stupid shit again, then there's problems with that. If that handoff is smooth and they understand exactly what they're coming into, I think it's good. But if it isn't, and let's face it, 9 times out of 10, it isn't, then there's problems with it. I will feel like I'm, secondhand sausage being passed around.
Chris has
Yeah,
that
that's good.
I mean, we
Yeah.
that's just for Chris.
Yeah.
We'll leave that for some of the podcasts that we're doing. Feel free to join in there. But enough said. This has been super insightful. Thank you, all of you, for joining. As a reminder, we have our third session at the same hour next Monday, the 31st. We're going to cover how to turn everybody here into loyal advocates, the power of community, the power of advocacy, which drives growth for both sides. Again, if you can't join us for the sessions or want the recordings, visit audiencefirst.fm where you can register on demand and get extra goodies. And as always, if you have any feedback for us on how we could get better, drop that in the comments here or just reach out to us directly. Thank you very much for joining us, panelists. Thank you again for taking the time, a little bit over time. Thank you so much.